If I'm beaten and raped in the state of Texas, I have to give birth to the baby of my rapist. If I am raped by my father, brother, or uncle and get pregnant in the state of Texas, I have to give birth to the baby of my family abuser. This new law is so draconian that I can be prosecuted for having an abortion, and so can my doctors, friends, and family who advise me, or even the Uber driver who simply drives me to the clinic. This is madness. The same people who have been protesting and screaming, "My body, my choice," when it comes to the COVID vaccine, are now saying I don't have any control over my own body. Texas Republicans won't require a 12-year-old girl to wear a mask in school that may save her life and the lives of other children, but they will force her to keep a baby regardless of how she got pregnant, including rape and incest. I am a woman, and I have a constitutional right to make decisions for my own body. I am a woman, and I have a human right to refuse to give birth to my rapist's baby. I am a woman. This is my body. I am a woman. This is the United States of America. I am a woman. You do not own or control my mind or my body.
My body is my choice.
Shame on the men and women who passed this law, and shame on anyone who sits in silence while women suffer and die because of it.
Hello everybody, it's Jeff. I hope everybody's doing well today. Nice day here in Maine, a bit windy, but it's nice and sunny. But I'll tell you what, this morning, when I got up to use my cell phone, there was a little thing on the top, a red indicator there that it needed upgrades. You know what I'm saying? They have you download these patches or something on your phone. I get that like every couple of months or something like that on my phone, and it drives me drives me crazy. Well, I got one today, and so I figured, well, I won't be needing the phone for a little while, so I went ahead and started the upload. It took quite a while there, I guess. You know, it seemed like about 40 minutes maybe. And then finally, the phone shut off and rebooted itself, and it came back on, and then it asked for my password and all that other shit. I pushed all the things I needed in there, and then it wouldn't go to the home screen, okay? And I said, well, maybe when it rebooted, it didn't reboot properly. So what I did is I shut the phone off again, and then I turned it back on. It went through the exact same series of questions, and stuff to make sure you are who you say you are, and it still wouldn't get to the home screen. And I was like, well, what the hell, So I was sitting here fiddling around with it, trying to see what I might have done wrong, and I couldn't really get anywhere because I couldn't get past the home screen because there was no home screen. And I'm like, shit, So I used my backup phone, and I called up U.S. Cellular there. That's where I get my service from. And I told them on the phone what was going on, and they said, well, you might as well bring it in. I'll look at it. I can't really understand what the problem is, by you just describing it on the phone. I said, okay, all right, because I didn't live far. So I got in my truck about an hour later after I got dressed and everything, and I drove down over there, and the guy that answered the phone call was there. So he took the phone. In about 2 minutes, he had the goddamn thing working. I said, what the hell hell did you do? And he was like, well, it was just, you didn't scroll up on that screen to select, to continue. I said, scroll up where? He said, the last screen before it was supposed to take you to the home screen, you were supposed to, I said, well, where does it say you have to scroll it up? I said, why did I have to go do that? Because it didn't say anything like, scroll down to select your answer. It didn't say nothing. There was no arrow. There was no indication that there was anything I had to scroll up to. So I was like, well, how the hell was I supposed to know that? He says, oh, I'm sorry. He goes, it's just, because the page is like so big that the screen could only encapsulate, a part of it, and you have to push the rest of it up. Well, I had no idea that you had to do that. So every time I was coming to that screen, I thought the phone was frozen. All along, all I had to do was thumb the damn thing up, and then there was a selection at the bottom to continue, and then that took me right to the home screen. And I'm like, son of a bitch. I said, I was about ready to take that phone and hammer that right to the floor. I said, He says, well, you got to be patient with stuff like that. I said, patient? I said, He said, you don't understand patience. I said, I've been patient with computers, for the last 40 years here. I said, Jesus. I said, I can't understand how people can create these great computers and stuff like that and then forget the details on how to make it user-friendly. I said, they might know how to use it because they're the ones programming it, but they don't think about the other people who don't understand computers as well as they do, and how that's going to relate to them and how it'll impact their usage of the phone. I said, like I said, in that instance, they didn't have anything there to set to scroll down to continue. It wasn't there. And I said, that's why I thought the thing was frozen, because it wasn't showing me anything more. So anyway, he says, well, just remember that the next time you have to do a download. I said, yeah, but I downloaded stuff in this phone before and it never did that. I said, so that must be something new they added in with the screen, because the other uploads, the upgrades to the phone, that screen wasn't there. Okay, it would just continue on its own to the home screen. It didn't ask me if I wanted to continue. It would just do it on its own. So anyway, I spent half the morning fighting with the phone. Now I got it to work. So I went through it and made sure everything was where it's supposed to be, that wasn't tampered with, and, so far it seems to be fine. Anyway, aside from that, today in the news here, I don't know how many of you were aware of this, but Senator Mallory McMorrow, she was being insulted by Republicans because of her Democratic stance on kids being able to understand things to do with sexuality and stuff like that. And they said some pretty vile things to her, and it took her a while to figure out what she could say back. And on YouTube, there's somebody recorded her entire speech, which is pretty powerful, by the way. So if you haven't seen it, you should go and look it up, because it's really, really a good speech. But in this article here, they wrote about it, and it's in Yahoo News, written by Christopher Wilson, published today, this morning actually. It's entitled, Michigan State Senator Hits Back at GOP Colleague Accusing Her of Grooming Kids. Now, the colleague she's talking about wasn't the only one who was doing that. There was people on Fox News that were also piling on top of her over this. So she was really speaking to all the Republicans here. Michigan State Senator Mallory McMorrow pushed back in a viral speech against the growing trend of Republicans labeling their Democratic opponents as groomers and pedophiles. McMorrow responded Tuesday morning to accusations made in a fundraising email by Republican State Senator Lana Theis that her Democratic colleague wanted to, quote, groom and sexualize kindergartens, unquote. Quote, I didn't expect to wake up yesterday to the news that the senator from the 22nd District had, overnight, accused me by name of grooming and sexualizing children in an email fundraising for herself, unquote, McMorrow said at the beginning of her remarks. Quote, so, I sat on it for a while wondering Why me? And then I realized because I am the biggest threat to your hollow, hateful scheme. Because you can't claim that you are targeting marginalized kids in the name of parental rights if another parent is standing up to say no, unquote. Republicans have attempted to position themselves as the party of parental rights, with state legislatures across the country introducing a series of bills targeting the LGBTQ community, with those opposing the legislation being labeled as quote-unquote groomers. They've also targeted books that discuss race and gender while attempting to make it illegal for parents to seek gender-affirming care for transgender children. Prominent right-wing media figures have focused on anti-LGBTQ attacks in recent weeks. Quote, so then what? Unquote, continued McMurrow. Quote, then you dehumanize and marginalize me. You say that I'm one of them. You say she's a groomer. She supports pedophilia. She wants children to believe that they were responsible for slavery and to feel bad about themselves because they're white, unquote. McMurrow's speech has been viewed over 9 million times in the last 24 hours since she posted it to her Twitter account. During her comments, she talked about growing up, being active in the church, working with her mother at a soup kitchen, and the civil rights work of Father Ted Hesburgh, the former president of her alma mater, Notre Dame. Senator Lana Theis accused me by name of grooming and sexualizing children in an attempt to marginalize already, excuse me here. The screen here just shifted on me. Okay. Resident alma mater Notre Dame. I quote, I've learned that service was far more important than performative nonsense like being seen in the same pew every Sunday or writing Christian in your Twitter bio and using that as a shield to target and marginalize already marginalized people, unquote. McMurrow said, emphasizing that she is a white, straight Christian suburban mom and that those promoting the attacks were using it to deflect from the fact that they weren't working on the real issues. Quote, I know that hate will only win if people like me stand by and let it happen, unquote, concluded McMurrow, who was first elected in 2018 and is on the ballot again this November. Quote, so I want to be very clear right now. Call me whatever you want. I hope you brought in a few dollars. I hope it made you sleep good last night. I know who I am. I know what faith and service means and what it calls for in this moment. We will not let hate win, unquote. Thesis rhetoric against McMurrow in the fundraising email sent out on Monday read, quote, these are the people who we are up against. Progressive social media trolls like Senator Malloy McMurrow, who are outraged they can't teach, can't groom, and sexualize kindergartens, or that 8-year-olds are responsible for slavery, unquote. She added that, quote, enlightened elites, unquote, believe parents, quote, must surrender to the wisdom of teacher unions, trans activists, and the education bureaucracy, unquote. These targeted McMurrow and other Democrats in the Senate after they walked out of a session last Wednesday due to the content of Thesis Invocation, which the legislatures took as a precursor to action against LGBTQ educators. Quote, dear Lord, across the country we're seeing in the news that our children are under attack, that there are forces that desire things for them other than what their parents would have them see and hear and know. Dear Lord, I pray for your guidance in this chamber to protect the most vulnerable among us, unquote, said Theis, who is chair of the Senate Education and Career Readiness Committee. Quote, the forces are, of course, public school teachers, and the things are the LGBTQ community, unquote, tweeted Democratic Senator Dana Polanyi. Quote, to pervert the Senate invocation in this way is beyond the pale, unquote. Quote, without sharing or repeating closed-minded, harmful words from a sitting senator under the guise of a prayer to every child in Michigan, you are perfect and welcome and loved for being exactly who you are, unquote, added McMurrow on Twitter. A number of GOP senators used the confirmation hearings of new Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson to label her as soft on child pornography offenders, despite repeated analysis showing that Jackson's rulings were within the mainstream of her fellow judges. When 3 Republican senators said they would vote to confirm Jackson, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican from Georgia, called them pro-pedophile. The following day, she referred to Democrats as the, quote, party of pedophiles, unquote. Greene's comments and the general trend toward accusations of pedophilia echo the QAnon conspiracy theory supported by Greene in the past, which alleges that former President Trump was working to take down a powerful cabal of child traffickers typically portrayed as the Democratic elite. Believers in the debunked theory frequently allege that their political opponents support pedophiles. Those pushing the accusations have a large audience, as a recent survey from the Public Religion Research Institute found that 16% of Americans believe that, quote, the government, the media, and financial worlds in the U.S. are controlled by a group of Satan-worshipping pedophiles who run a global child sex trafficking operation. Jesus H. McMurrow's direct response is a contrast to what the National Democratic strategy has been to the increase of Republicans claiming they are a party of pedophiles and groomers. Vice News spoke to a number of prominent House Democrats last week about Greene's comments. Quote, I don't even really pay attention to anything she says because she has nothing rational to say. It seems to me to be a ridiculous allegation, unquote, said Representative Hakeem Jeffries, a Democrat from New York, a member of House Democratic leadership. Quote, we're focused right now on getting things done for everyday Americans, lowering costs, addressing gas prices and inflation. They can continue to peddle lies and conspiracy theories, unquote. Quote, I see polling that shows that outrageous characterization is landing with some folks, unquote. Representative Eric Swalwell, Democrat, California, told the outlet, quote, but you also don't really want to give oxygen to the land of the misfit toys, which is where this is coming from, unquote. Yeah, so, you know, this is what the Republicans have in their sleeve here to try to win elections, is creating social disorder, in effect to divide the country even more than it already is. Okay, that's their ultimate goal, because they know they can win elections when people are at each other's throats in this country, and they do so well at that because the Democrats often take the high ground by not talking about what they're saying, by not addressing it, and thereby what's being said by the right wing gets to stick in people's minds because the Democrats don't really fight back on it. And, you know, I say, you know, why not fight back? You know, what's wrong with slinging a little mud back at them publicly, as they often do to us? I mean, don't you think that, you know, it's going to be, you know, you could still sway a few minds to go think the other way? You know, that would be worth a few shots at them, okay? But, you know, they're really hitting below the belt with this pedophile shit, okay? Because, you know, there's a lot of them, a lot of pedophiles that came out of the Republican Party. If you look back, you know, a lot of them were caught doing shit. So, you know, the sexual deviancy shit, okay, is not permanent in one party or another. It affects, it's in, you know, men, you know what I'm saying? It's universal, okay? You don't have to be a Republican or a Democrat to be a pedophile or not a pedophile, okay? We've found these people in both parties over the years, okay? And at least in my lifetime, anyway. And so, Greene here, she's, you know, what she's saying, she's just saying in order to get under people's skin, okay? Because she knows goddamn well, you know, that what, you know, on the surface of it all, it might sound inflammatory and things like that, but underneath it all, it's all based in bullshit. It's hollow. You know, it doesn't have any fact at all to back up what she said. And, you know, here's the thing. As we get closer to, you know, the elections, you know, midterms, the Republicans are really showing us who they are, really. you think about what's been going on in this country the last 8-9 months here, and you wonder, well, what do they stand for? What's their agenda? Well, they really don't have to tell you what their agenda is, okay? Because we already know what it is just by following what they've been doing in this country since Joe Biden won the election, okay? First, they've been lying about the election, okay? They tried to stir up a fucking a fight in D.C. with that stupid terrorist action there. They got their people to get involved in, okay? Then they attack, the states in the country by trying to redistrict all the goddamn states. That way they can gain more votes for the next election coming up, okay? And then after they've done that, they're going around attacking people. They're attacking women, okay? Cutting off their right to get abortions, okay? They're attacking immigrants trying to get into this country. They're attacking the economy by deliberately doing things to slow it down, by creating 8-mile backups on the other side of the Texas border, going down into Mexico, because the governor in Texas wants to really check these vehicles out for drugs and contraband and whatever the hell else he thinks is in there, which is bullshit, okay? So he's deliberately slowing down trucks from getting into the country here to deliver goods and stuff like that. So that's forcing prices to go up in grocery stores and things around the country. Okay, and then let's see, what else have they been up to? Okay, they've been cheering on Russia as they've been attacking Ukraine. Okay, you turn on Fox News and they got, rah, 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 let's hear it for Putin. Okay, so, this is the party of Putin here in our own country, because they think that, because they see Ukraine as the Democrat stronghold. It's like, this is what Democrats would want for a country, freedom and all this shit. Okay, and Putin is the big Republican arm going down to smash the Democrats. Okay, and I think, when did something like that ever happen before in this country, where you got people actually cheering on the communists? Okay, if these people's grandparents were around, they would say, you guys are out of your fucking minds. These people are not your friends. They don't care if you're cheering them on, because they just as soon shoot you as they are the other people. Okay, they don't like Americans, no matter how many ways you cheer them on. Okay, I mean, what do you think this whole thing was with Putin is rooted in? The Cold War. And what were they doing during the Cold War? They were basically trying to outgun us. Okay, that's what Putin's origins are from, and that's what he wants to bring his country back to. And as far as the Republicans are concerned, he's welcome to it. He wants to drag America back into the Cold War. They're like, yeah, let's do it. To them, those were good days. Because they had their hallmark hero there, Ronald Reagan, as president, okay, who could do no wrong, when all along he was setting the groundwork down for the country that we're turning into now. Okay, so this is the kind of party you got here. That's their agenda. What they've been doing, they want to further what they've been doing this past year. Okay, that's what they want to do. They want to further this along. All these things. They want Trump back because they know he's pliable, that he'd be willing to do what these people want to see done. Okay. They want to see oligarchs in this country. They want they want to see Trump as the president forever. Okay. They want to do it just like Russia does it. And so if they can get Trump back in there, they're assured that they can try and twist the government around so that way it happens that way. Okay. And like somebody had said on the radio today, that if by some chance Trump runs for president and he wins and gets this fucking second term that he wanted, that's going to damage our image big time around the world, because the rest of the world's going to say America doesn't even know what it is anymore. Okay, they're at conflict with themselves. I mean, there's a civil war going on right now in our own government, and it's not being fought with guns. It's being fought by ideas. You got one side trying to trip up the other, so that way they can get themselves back into power, so they can turn around and continue what they were trying to do when Trump was president. Okay, and if you all remember, you know, Trump was pretty much isolating us from the world around us. Okay, and he was, you know, buddying up to Putin while he was in Washington. You know, so I don't know about you, but you know, if Ukraine sees that happening, where that head there gets back into the friggin' White House, I don't know if Zelensky's going to really be able to ask us for help anymore, because Trump will just cut him off, you know, and let that country fall. I really see that happening. You know, he's not going to give two shits about Zelensky. Instead, he's going to give aid to Russia, you know, in whatever way. He's going to lift all the fucking sanctions against them. And as he does that, I mean, what do you think NATO's going to do? You know, how are they going to react to that? I mean, are they going to say, well, we want the United States out? I mean, and Trump wouldn't care, right? He wouldn't give a fuck if they kicked us out. But that's where we're headed, people. I mean, that's the kind of leadership Republicans are crawling and scratching for right now. And they think they're doing it because the Democrats are so evil that if the Democrats are in power, nothing but bad will happen. Well, what they're seeing is what's already happened whenever the Republicans are in power, is just pure evil. Okay, because Republicans have been tearing things down systematically over the last 50 years. Okay, that's what they've been doing. And the problem is people have short memories in this country when it comes to politics. They can't connect the dots and follow the breadcrumbs and where the money comes from and all that shit. They only want to look at one side of this. They only want to do that with the Democrats. They don't look at both sides of this thing. Okay, and you know, if you're going to be an honest appraiser of American government, you got to open your eyes, the whole picture. You got to see the whole goddamn picture here. And what you're going to see, if you're honest with yourself, you know, is going to, you know, piss you off. It's really going to piss you off, and it's going to motivate you to want to change things. But what people are doing now is they pick the side they want to believe in, and they just go with that. Okay, and they believe everything that part says, and they're just taught that whatever the other side said is wrong and it's crooked, and don't listen to them. And they go so far as accusing us of you know, being pedophiles and grooming little kids and trying to corrupt their minds in kindergarten. Okay, and but who's the one out there banning books, you know, from schools? Who's the one out there trying to stop the teaching of slavery? Okay, who's the one that's already grooming these kids in school, trying to dumb them down so that way they can't understand, you know, why things look so bleak in this country, and why, you know, they were never told about things that were bad to happen. They don't want these kids to think about that. Okay, that creates sympathy, you know, as they grow up, and they don't want people sympathetic to what the right wing calls the minorities in this country. But what the Republicans want is a complete, you know, they just want to stop voting. Period. They don't like voting because they can't win seats through voting anymore. Okay, when Trump lost the election, that scared the shit out of them, because they thought for sure that he was going to win, because you know, the numbers showed them that he was so popular. They threw a ton of money at him to go after to beat Hillary. I mean, sorry, not Hillary, but, you know, to beat Biden. And they said, Biden's not going to win, not against Trump, you know. And, you know, so they really thought that Trump would win. You know, because what they were doing is they were looking at the rallies. They were looking at the rallies that, you know, Biden and Trump were, you know, had put on during the campaign. And the Republicans' rallies were always full of people, okay? Unmasked people at the rallies, tons of them. And, you know, they'd be there, and all of a sudden they'd have the next day, or next few days rather, an outbreak of COVID-19. Where did that come from? You know, where was you? Where have you been? You've been at these rallies. Whereas on Biden's side, there were fewer people showing up, but they were watching him at home. Okay, and they were protecting themselves because, you know, they knew about the COVID-19. So that gave them sort of a misinterpretation of the popularity of these people. Biden was obviously more popular than Trump was. Americans really didn't like Trump anymore, and what happened was his last year as president sealed his fate. The way he handled the coronavirus thing, he just wasn't on board with it. He just wanted to just forget all about it and live his life like nothing was going on, and the Republicans were just as happy as pigs in high cotton to keep doing the same damn thing. So now, here we are today, and the Republicans are attacking anybody that wants to say something about, their children having to know something about history in this country and about what America had gone through. And they don't like that. They don't want anybody to know about how manipulative Republicans were, how they supported racism in this country, okay, and how they want to marginalize the minorities, okay. They don't want the kids to know that, because Jesus, by the time you tell them these things, how slavery started and all this stuff, and then obviously they're going to have this factual view of how America started, and Republicans are going to have a hard time trying to untwist their minds, so they just don't want that shit read to them anymore. Okay, they're so scared of intelligence and knowledge that these kids will pick up that they want to write their own books, basically, and they're trying to destroy the public school system in the process, so that way our kids are not going to school to be educated, but going to school to be indoctrinated, okay, into a propaganda type learning system, okay? And who the hell wants to send their kids into a system like that? All I gotta say is this: to the parents out there that are Republican and don't like what their kids are learning in school, take your kid out of that fucking school and teach them yourself if that's what you need to do, okay? But don't force everybody else to have to kowtow to your little feelings, about what you think is going on in our school system, okay? If you don't like the public school system, then you don't have to put your kid through it. You take the time and educate them yourself. Since you've got enough time to bitch about it, you should have enough time to teach your kid yourself. Lots of people do that these days. Okay, they'd rather they learn at home, from their parents. Okay, so don't fuck with the public school system. That can be for everybody else, and you can do your own goddamn thing. All right, let's have a commercial break.
Dear CEO, what's it gonna take for you to do something? Yeah, do you even care?
Climate change affects all of us.
This is your chance to do something good.
Superman movie is brought to you by Canon, the world's leading camera manufacturer.
Quick, it's happy!
Canavision 8 camcorders.
Hey, I thought you were Superman, huh?
Hey, I am!
If it moves, shoot it with a cannon.
Important issue in the governor's race here in Virginia.
Getting back to the basics of teaching children, not teaching them critical race theory.
And what is critical race theory?
Well, I'm not going to get into the specifics of it because I don't understand it that much, but it's something that what little bit that I know, I don't care for.
And what have you heard that you don't?
Well,
that you don't
like? I'm not going to, I don't have that much knowledge on it, but It's something that I don't care for.
the Fresh Maker.
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it. It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
Hey everybody, welcome back. So, another story here from Yahoo News, written today by Kate Buck. It's entitled, Putin officials are increasingly worried he could unleash a limited nuclear weapon. Kremlin officials are becoming increasingly worried Vladimir Putin could use limited nuclear weapons as part of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Officials at high levels of government spoke to Bloomberg, claiming they believed the invasion was a quote-unquote catastrophic mistake which will set Russia back years. Speaking on condition of anonymity, the Kremlin sources said there is no sign Putin will change his mind and faces no direct challenge within the walls of the Kremlin. He has also repeatedly ignored those who have attempted to warn him of the crushing effects his war could have on Russia's economic and political future, destroying 2 decades of growth. Almost overnight, Western nations implemented biting sanctions, cutting off half of the central bank's $640 billion reserves. Some said they share fears voiced by the U.S. that Putin will turn to a limited nuclear war in which 2 nuclear superpowers engage in a direct confrontation which does not end in either a surrender or massive destruction. However, U.S. officials have clarified there is, quote, no practical evidence, unquote, nuclear weapons will be used imminently. On Thursday, the director of the CIA said Putin could turn to using a tactical or low-yield nuclear weapon out of, quote, potential desperation, unquote, to claim a small victory. William J. Burns, who was formerly the U.S. ambassador to Russia, said, quote, given the potential desperation of President Putin and the Russian leadership, given the setbacks that they've faced so far militarily, none of us can take lightly the threat posed by a potential resort to tactical nuclear weapons or low-yield nuclear weapons, unquote. But he cautioned he had yet to see any, quote, practical evidence, unquote, of military deployments which would indicate this move was imminent. Fears were further stoked on Tuesday after Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said his country was not considering using nuclear weapons, quote, at this stage, unquote, of the invasion. Speaking to India today, Lavrov was asked if Russia was looking at a deployment part of their nuclear arsenal. He said, quote, at this stage we are considering the option of conventional weapons only, unquote, according to Russia RIA state news agency. Despite Western claims, Putin had thought he could take Ukraine within days of mounting an invasion. It has now been 7 weeks since Putin ordered his troops in on February the 24th. But having failed to take control of Kyiv, Russian forces have completely withdrawn from the north of Ukraine and have instead focused on a takeover of the dumbass region in the southeast. That's what it sounds like. Russia has hinted at the use of nuclear weapons in the past, and while no nuclear arsenal has been deployed, Putin's forces have been accused of using chemical weapons in Ukraine. Russia's actions have promoted a potential expansion of NATO, with Finland and Sweden announcing their intentions to join in the summer. Putin has long harbored animosity towards the peacetime alliance and says he regards it as a direct threat. Putin's spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, refused to rule out the use of nuclear weapons last month if Russia was faced with an, quote, existential threat, unquote. Dmitry Polansky, the Russian deputy ambassador to the UN, warned Moscow reserved the right to deploy nuclear weapons if, quote-unquote, provoked. Asked if Putin was right to hold the prospect of nuclear war over the rest of the world, Polyansky told Sky News, quote, if Russia is provoked by NATO, if Russia is attacked by NATO, why not? We are a nuclear power. Quote, I don't think it's the right thing to be saying, but it's not the right thing to threaten Russia and try to interfere. So when you're dealing with the nuclear power, of course, you have to calculate all the possible outcomes of your behavior, unquote. Fears of a nuclear disaster were stoked after Russian troops took over Chernobyl nuclear station. In March, Putin's forces began shelling Europe's largest nuclear power plant, Zaporizhzhia, as part of its assault on Ukraine. Yeah, that's been on everybody's mind. You know, like, well, what happens if Putin feels like he's not going to win this thing? Is he going to go nuclear? And I think, yeah, he probably would. Okay, because look, consider all the things that's happened since he started this invasion. The sanctions, the extended period that he's having to spend in Ukraine to try to conquer that nation, which he didn't expect. It's costing that country, costing Russia rather, lots of manpower and money and time. And so, you know, the rest of the world sees this happening, and it's embarrassing, you know, for him. So, being, you know, in Putin's mind, it's like he's not going to stop until he wins. Okay, he's in for this for the long haul, if it has to be that way. And Ukraine is hell bent on stopping him, or, you know, whatever that takes to keep him from it. So this is a war that could be going on and on and on. You know, who knows? But as it does that, it's going to escalate and get worse, because as both sides fight harder to try to get to win, eventually they're going to want more powerful weapons in order to accomplish that. Okay? So Putin, yes, he's got his arsenal of tactical nukes and ICBMs and whatever the hell else. He's got all that shit. And if just one of these nukes is enough to give him the momentum to finally bring Ukraine down, yes, he's going to use that fucking thing. Despite what, you know, his people are saying, we can't really trust anything they say. They've been lying to us for months here. They told us, this was going to be an exercise. That, you know, there was no invasion of Ukraine planned, right? That was a big fucking lie right there. So why should we ever believe anything Russia says to the press on the global scale, okay? They're saying, he's not going to do it. Bullshit. I know fucking well he's going to do it, okay? Which brings me back to my point way back when I was talking about, you know, closing off airspace over Ukraine, okay? If Russia sees that the United States is invested in protecting that country, do you think they would be so eager or willing to want to launch a tactical nuke into that country, knowing that the United States is defending them? You know, I doubt it. Like I said before, he's not going to sacrifice his own country just to take down Ukraine, okay? Ukraine is shit at the bottom of his heel. He just wants that country back so he can, you know, try to rebuild the Soviet Union the way it was, okay? But if he has to blow up the country in order to get it back, that's what he'll do. But he's certainly not going to sacrifice what he has in order to do that, okay? Which is why I wish NATO would have grown some balls, you know, and say, yeah, we'll send some forces down there to match Ukraine's forces, and we'll put some jets in the air. We'll send aircraft carriers, everything that we need, okay, to keep those planes going to enforce a no-fly zone, okay? Once they have the air covered and the Russians are you know, not sure what they want to do, that's when you move in the ground forces and start pushing Russia the hell out of Ukraine. Get them back on their side of the fucking border and then stay there, okay? And say, you know, we're not gonna come any further, but you're not coming back in. You know, you stay on your side of the border, we'll stay on ours. You know, and this whole thing started because of Putin's fucking paranoia, thinking that if Ukraine becomes part of NATO, oh, we're going to have a NATO enemy on our borders. Well, guess what? Russia is surrounded by fucking NATO, okay? What makes you think that this country bordering Russia is going to make anything different than what, you know, it's his own paranoia that provoked this, okay? His own paranoia about a country that used to be part of Russia now becoming part of the West. He didn't want that. He didn't want that at all, okay? But, you know, it wasn't his call. That Ukraine was its own country, okay? He lost the ability to tell that country what they can or can't do. They weren't even part of Russia no more. So, you know, like I said, what he did, there's so many friggin' things that he did that's, you know, illegal since he started this thing, you know? Human rights crimes and, you know, and doing all these nasty things, you know, killing kids and bombing hospitals and shit like that. He's just been mounting up every reason in the world why we should not allow Russia to take Ukraine, okay? Taking Ukraine by Russia would be a big mistake because that would just make it easier for him to go into Poland and all the other countries that he wants to go after. Right now, Poland is scared. They're figuring Russia's going to come after them soon. So they've been gearing up. America's been sending American troops over in Poland, working with them, training them, getting them ready for the possibility that Russia might be moving in on Poland. Okay? So he's not going to stop with Ukraine, and we cannot allow him to take Ukraine. He has to be stopped at Ukraine. That's why I say you've got to have the fucking air coverage. Okay? Yeah, they're going to rattle their sword. They're going to get pissed. Putin's going to scream and holler and yell, okay? All that's going to happen. But at the end of the day, when he sits down, is he going to have the balls to push all the buttons and just destroy his country and his fucking dream of getting the Soviet Union back over one country? I don't see that's really going to happen. I really don't. I think at the end of the day, we'll call his bluff and he'll just pull his forces out of Ukraine. I really think that's what will happen. But, you know, the longer that this played out, you know, since the beginning, the less likely we're going to be able to control what's going on in Ukraine. Okay, we can give them all the weapons we have, okay, but at the end of the day, these people are still fighting a ground war. And if we can't control the air, you know, and we can't, you know, keep our, you know, keep their pilots out from bombing the, you know, the ground, you know, with their rockets and shit, you know, they're always going to be on the defense, okay? And right now, the Ukrainians would like to be able to be on the offense here for a change, to try to change the map, as it were, you know, change the table, so that way the Russians are going to be caught off guard. The Russians are going to fight dirtier now because now they've hired out mercenaries that they brought in from other countries to fight alongside the Russian soldiers now. There was talk about that. Okay, so they're reaching out to the dirtiest of fighters around the world to join up with the Russian forces to fight in Ukraine. So the Ukrainians, you know, they're going to be fighting a much more bloody war than what they've been fighting. Okay, this time Russia's going to come back in harder, and I don't think Ukraine is going to be ready for that. All right, despite the weapons, what they need are more troops. What they need is a bigger force. Okay, they don't have enough people to defend that country. You know, we have to send in, you know, American troops and NATO forces. You know, it has to be a massive push into that country just to show that Putin, if you want to push this to the brink of World War III, this is what you're going to be facing. And there's no way Russia's going to come out of this on top. No way at all. You're going to be fighting a war you're going to lose. Okay? It don't matter how many fucking nukes you got. At the end of the day, your country is going to be ashes. Your people are going to be dead. Okay? And that's the end of it. So it's just, you know, that's what Putin has to look down as the barrel of inevitability that he will lose this thing. He's not convinced that he will. We have to convince him that he will lose this thing. And if he doesn't see initiative from the West to seriously protect Ukraine, he's going to feel emboldened to continue to escalate this war to the point where by the time we step in, we're not going to have an edge over Russia. We're not going to have anything to threaten him with. Basically, we're not going to be able to stop him. All right? So I think, we have to face him now while he's in Ukraine trying to take that country, because that's his goal. All right? Once he gets that, then other countries are going to feel like they're on the edge. And then what do you think is going to happen? Then the United States is going to step in and defend Poland and defend. It's like, well, we should have done this with Ukraine. He wouldn't have gone into Poland. He wouldn't have gone into these other countries. Okay? You got Finland wants to join NATO. I mean, they're scared too. They're scared too. These people are afraid. Putin is on the rise. He's picking up momentum. He's bringing in military. And they don't feel like they're going to be safe enough. Okay? And so, we have to consider that we can't have do-overs. All right? We have to take initiative when the doors of opportunity open. We had a big door of opportunity to open where we could have sealed off the airspace over Ukraine. We let that go. Okay? We let that go. And what we did is we just gave Ukraine's ground forces more sophisticated weapons. Okay? Well, that's fine. You can flood them with all the weapons you got, but if they ain't got enough people out there to carry them, then those weapons are going to mean shit at the end of the day. So what they need down there, are millions more troops on the ground to fight and push back Russia in a way that, ensures that they won't be in Ukraine, any more than a week. Okay? Yeah, once the Russian military starts to suffer some real losses, I mean, some big losses here, huge chunks of their military being wiped out, they'll go running back to mama, okay? And Putin's not going to have a fucking thing to do about it, okay? Because his military is going to be decimated, all right? He's not going to want to see that. It's his military is as weak as it is fighting a dirty war because that's the only way they can really do anything. They can't fight honestly on the battlefield, toe to toe with anybody because they're poorly trained. Their equipment is old. All right, they're using like 30, 40, 50-year-old equipment out there. Some of it isn't even working. Remember that big line of fucking trucks here they had? That's what they're looking at. Crappy equipment. Okay. So the only way they're trying to fight this war is by demoralizing the Ukrainians, by attacking the kids in the hospitals. That's the way they're fighting this thing. They figure they can win this in a dirty fashion. But all it's doing is it's pissing off the rest of the world, and the rest of the world wants to stand up and join the fight. Okay? So this is going to backlash against him in the long run. That's why I'm saying we have to take the momentum and push this further, because while we still have the will out there to go against him, we'll need that to finally go into Ukraine and push Russia out of that country. All right? They've lost so much already down there in Ukraine. I mean, some beautiful cities are just laid to waste now. It looks like fucking World War II down there all over again. Okay? You got people huddled into caves in the ground and shit. And, they don't know where they're going to get their meal from one day to the next. Okay, that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable, and nobody in the world should be sitting by and twiddling their thumbs and crossing their fingers that things won't escalate. They're going to escalate because you're allowing Putin to feel like he can get away with all this shit, and he's more emboldened now than he was when he started this thing to push this thing even further. And before you know it, there won't be any talk about if he's going to use tactical nukes or not. It's going to be when is he going to use the tactical nukes or not. And we don't want to get to that point. We don't want to get to the when is he going to use it. We want to stop this before it gets to that point, by showing, that we have as much of a force to deal with as he does. And, maybe then he'll change his fucking tune and he'll back off. Okay? And as far as Putin himself is concerned, we're not going to be able to get to try him on a fucking thing that he's done wrong in this thing, all right? The only thing we can hope to do is to get an assassin into that country and blow his head off. That's the only thing we can do at this point. because we can't go into Russia and arrest him, put cuffs on him, and say, okay, you're under arrest for these charges. That's not how it works when it comes to situations like this. The rest of the world can charge him until the cows come home, but none of that is ever going to be acted on unless Putin decides to surrender himself, you know. But he ain't going to do that. Why should he? You know, he's a superpower, so why the hell should he kowtow to NATO? So all this talk about human crimes and stuff that he's doing, you know, and things like that. Okay, yeah, that's going to be for the history books to print down. But as far as dragging him into answering for that, no, that's not going to work. Okay, he won't allow that. His country won't allow that. At worst, they'll force him out of power, but that's the worst he's going to suffer from it, unless somebody assassinates him. If it's true that there's people in the Kremlin that are nervous about what he's doing, you know, maybe that's a sign that some of them might even be considering a plot against him already. But the truth is that as far as the charges go, he ain't going to answer for any of that stuff. So don't even think that that's going to happen. I mean, he's the kind of person that would, if he felt the odds were against him, he'd probably pull a trigger on his own head, you know, like Hitler did. Okay, but you know, he's definitely not going to answer for that on a you know, on a global trial or whatever the hell you want to call it. It's not going to happen. So yeah, it's sad, like I said, to see how much devastation has gone on in Ukraine. And it's been, they said, 7 weeks. You know, in 7 weeks, they've taken, you know, a beautiful country like that and they've turned it into a war zone. And I fear that before this thing is all said and done, Ukraine is going to be nothing but like the surface of the moon. Because if the time comes where Dingbat wants to launch tactical nukes into Ukraine, then that's pretty much going to finish off anything that's still standing in that country. Okay, Chernobyl was like, why he wanted that, I don't know. Nobody was using Chernobyl as a power plant. They were trying to shut it down, as you know, what, but it wasn't powering anything. Okay, you remember they built a huge dome over that goddamn thing to keep the radiation contained inside of it. And him taking that was like, why? Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that piece of shit. But no, he sent his military down in there. And now they're coming home sick with radiation sickness because they dug trenches around Chernobyl, and while they were digging it, they were digging up more radiation that had gone into the ground, into the soil, and now they're all exposed to it. So they're sending home sick Russian soldiers from, you know, radiation contamination, and they're replacing them with new soldiers who are going to be right back in the same spot, and they themselves will get sick. So you see what I'm saying? You know, this is something that, you know, is going to escalate and get worse. Okay, because obviously, you know, Putin doesn't really care much about his fucking military. He expects them to win, even if they've got nothing but, you know, horse and buggy to fight with. Okay, he expects them to win, and he's finding out that, you know, his idea of how to fight a war is old-fashioned, and that's not the way things are done these days. Okay, you know, and so I feel like his back will be pushed against the wall at some point, where he's going to feel like he has to use a tactical nuke. Okay, and that's when the rest of the world is going to have to stand up with Ukraine, or what's left of Ukraine, and say, you launch that motherfucker, and we're going to rain hell down on you for that. You know, and then we'll see what he thinks then. You know, when he hears that, you know, the rest of the world is willing to just, you know, put a huge hole where Russia used to be. You know, maybe then that'll be what'll wake him up, or maybe wake some people up who don't like Putin. And all of a sudden, one morning, we wake up and we find out his throat's been cut while he was asleep. You know, maybe that's what it's going to have to take to scare the living shit, maybe not from Putin, but for everybody else that's with Putin, who is already nervous right now about the way things are going. If they see that it's imminent that nukes will be landing on their front yard, you know, they might say, look, we got to kill this son of a bitch, because if we don't, we're all dead. So they got a choice, and that's the choice we got to give them right now in order to stop this shit. Because it's either Putin or everybody. You know, we take him out or we take you all out. But the war is going to end, one fucking way or another. The war is going to end. You know. All right, so that's it for today, and I hope everybody has a great rest of the week. So please keep your ears open to any local COVID-19 news. I think some parts of the country are seeing an uptick on infections, people getting sick. I guess that, I don't know if it's that new variant that's going around that's doing that, or if it's just people not wearing the mask as much as they used to, because, you know, the CDC was overruled about, you know, a mandate for masks, and people just want to go around pretending that the pandemic is over when it's not. Okay, so anyway, be smart, be vigilant, okay, and you know, just watch yourself out there and keep informed. Informed people live longer, you know. And I'll talk to you later, so take care. Bye.